Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the Optochin sensitivity test and the plate bile solubility test. For this test, you're going to need your quality control cultures as well as your patient culture sample, 3 BAP plates, P discs, and deoxycholate. To record this test on your order sheet, you're going to start with a test setup to be incubated, Optochin equals, and then your QCs equal. And then on the back, you're going to do your plate bile solubility equals, and then the QCs are the same for both tests. To start off with the Optochin sensitivity test, you're just going to heat up your loop, get it nice and clean. Just like any other time you're in the lab, make sure you cool down your loop after you incinerate it. And although my plate doesn't have very well isolated colonies, the goal is to get a nice isolated colony or sample from a nice isolated colony in order to ensure that you're getting the sample that you want and the results that you want for your test. So here's me just picking up a little sample there. And you're going to do almost like a 4-quad streak. However, in the first quad, you're going to do a lawn. So you're going to go one way as you see here, one direction, kind of fourth of the plate down. You're going to rotate your plate slightly and then go almost at a diagonal right over the first streak that you made, and then a diagonal also in the other side. So this will create a nice lawn in your first quadrant, and then now you'll just continue like a regular 4-quadrant streak. Make your second streak coming out of the first quadrant there. You'll see me do in a second. So here I'm just streaking out of the first, that lawn that we created. Just going to go ahead and incinerate again. Very important to incinerate between quadrants to ensure you get very well isolated colonies. So make sure you always keep that in mind when you're streaking plates. So my third quad here, and then one last time, just do the fourth quad, and last streak. Alrighty, so fourth quad here. There you go. So almost like a 4-quad. However, the first quadrant you're doing a lawn. Here I'm just speeding up the process. I'm basically going to be doing that for all of the samples. So this is me getting my negative control, the resistant control, which is the strep variance group. And just like before, I did that lawn in the first quad, go to the second quad, third and fourth. Speeding it up, essentially doing the same thing. Now we're going to move on to my patient sample. So essentially doing the same thing. As you can see, I've labeled them with all of the names. So make sure you always label your plates with your name, your initial, your lab number, today's date, all of that important information, so your samples can be identified. Just working on my patient sample here. Alright. So now we're going to go ahead and place the Optochin discs. They come in a tube like this. It's easy to kind of drop them in the lid instead of trying to hunt them down through the long tube there. And then you want to get your forceps and just grab onto one of the discs. And then you're going to place the Optochin disc on the primary streak, where we created that lawn kind of right in the center of there. And then always be sure to lightly press down all of your discs just to make sure they're secure, sitting well in the auger. Right, so as you can see, it's in that first quad there. It might be a little bit hard because of the lighting. And here's me just doing that for the rest of the plates. So sensitive, controlled, resistant control, and then finally I'm going to move on to my patient. Right in the center there. Okay, so be sure to press it down. Right, and then you're going to incubate it in the CO2 incubator, which will be at 35 degrees for 24 to 48 hours. Leads to the best results. Alright, so this is after incubation. This is my strep pneumonia, which is the sensitive quality control. As you can see, there is a zone of inhibition, which means that it is sensitive to the Optochin. This was the strep species viridans group, and as you can see, there's no zone of inhibition, which means it's not sensitive to the Optochin. Now we're going to move on to the biosolubility. You're going to use your deoxycholate dropper and kind of drop a drop right between the first and second quad, and then something more closer to the third, between the third and fourth. You're dropping right there between the first and second, and then kind of between that third and fourth quad. You're going to leave the plates facing upwards like that. This is our patient sample. As you can see, there is a zone of inhibition there that's greater than 14 millimeters, which would indicate that it's sensitive to the Optochin. Here's me just placing the deoxycholate. And then you're going to incubate that in a non-CO2 incubator for up to 30 minutes, and then you're going to examine it for the dissolution of the colonies. So here are those two samples. You see on the left, the colonies have dissolved in the strep pneumoniae, whereas on the strep viridans group, where the deoxycholate was, the colonies are still intact. And this is our patient, and you can clearly see also in this that the colonies have dissolved when we place that deoxycholate. And then you're going to go ahead and record this on your order sheet. So for a patient, the Optochin equals sensitive. There was a 17 millimeter zone of inhibition. And then for the QC, the viridans group is resistant with no zone, and the strep pneumonia was sensitive with 17 millimeters of a zone. And the plate biosolubility would be sensitive for our patient, as there was dissolved colonies after placing the deoxycholate. The viridans group was resistant as the colonies stayed intact, and strep pneumonia was also sensitive as the colonies dissolved. Based on these results, we can assume that the patient sample was Streptococcus pneumoniae. There was a zone of inhibition greater than 14 millimeters, and the colony dissolved after placement of deoxycholate.